Hi, I'm Chad. I'm producing a series of videos on investing in industrial real estate. And even if you're not planning on investing anytime soon, I think you'll still get some value if you're just looking to learn more about the industry. In the first video, I talk about how industrial buildings all share one key process in common. Things come in, those things are either stored or worked on, then those things go out. I want to elaborate on the importance of that topic in more detail because products coming into and out of a warehouse are not just an integral part of industrial real estate, but to the economy as a whole. And to fully understand what industrial real estate is, we must also understand why companies need warehouse space and how it fits into their overall business. I'll also introduce an important concept called last mile delivery and how it's completely altering the economic landscape. So let's jump into it. This story starts with how I got this pen. It was a heroic journey for this little guy, and it all started in a factory in China. I wasn't there to verify, but I'd like to imagine it was the steady hands of a talented artisan who delicately assembled the raw materials such that the end product greatly exceeded the sum of its individual parts.
Sell me this pen.
And this one and thousands like it were assembled. They were packaged into boxes and put onto a truck eastbound towards the South China Sea. Once it reached the port of Hong Kong, the boxes of pens were then combined with other goods into shipping containers. Now, the pen is the hero in this story, but those containers are the supporting cast. The idea of shipping products by containerization was popularized by a guy named Malcolm McLean, and his impact on modern business cannot be overstated. Countless amounts of products are shipped across the world in these containers each and every day. When he died in 2001, container ships all over the world blew their whistles in his honor. Sometimes these containers are called CCANs or TEUs, which is short for 20-foot equivalent units. In practice, it's much more common to see 40-foot equivalent units, meaning they're 40 feet in length, but the abbreviation TEU has stuck as an industry standard. The CCAN now holding my future pen is then loaded onto a cargo ship to begin the journey across the Pacific Ocean. Another quick side note, some cargo ships can now hold 20,000 or more TEUs. But back to our story. Once the cargo ship hits the landed port somewhere in North America, the CCAN is loaded onto a rail car to begin an equally arduous journey across the continent. Once the train hits its destination, the CCAN is then loaded onto a flatbed of a semi-truck en route to a warehouse. At the warehouse, the goods are unpackaged, sorted, and repackaged to then head out to a retailer. I bought this pen from that retailer. This whole process is called a supply chain, and the steps involved in moving product along the chain are the modes of transportation. Since there are multiple modes in this particular supply chain, we can subsequently call it intermodal transportation. But here's the plot twist to my story. I bought this pen a few years ago from a bricks and mortar retailer. This pen, in my other hand, I bought a few months ago by ordering it online. This pen still had to make it overseas to a warehouse in North America, but the next step in the supply chain differed dramatically. This pen went from a warehouse to an airport by way of a delivery van, which then flew across the country. When it reached the airport in my city, it was then delivered to a FedEx location, which was then delivered by a delivery van to my house. Not all products online will be shipped by airplane, but the fact that the pen came directly to my house represents a dramatic shift in the system. While the traditional model was to have the supply chain end with the product being delivered to the retailer, there's been a shift away from shop and take home towards order online and have delivered. In other words, some consumers are skipping the bricks and mortar retailer altogether. Not all the time, of course, but enough times that e-commerce has caused some companies to make significant adjustments along the supply chain. And this is where the concept of last mile delivery comes in. The last mile is an arbitrarily set distance meant to imply that it's simply the final stage of getting the product to the customer's doorstep. It's not actually a new concept, as the term has been around for a while to describe the final stage in connecting utility services, phone lines, or even people. The concept has recently been expanded and gained more popularity as it's now used to address how e-commerce companies have to complete this final stage of the supply chain. As you could expect, companies want to simultaneously accomplish the task of getting product to consumers' doorsteps as quickly and efficiently as possible. This requires a rethink of the supply chain combined with a considerable amount of infrastructure. This is why you've probably noticed a lot more delivery vehicles on your street and a lot of new warehouses in your area. It all leads to one undeniable fact. E-commerce has fueled demand for more warehouse space all over North America and the world for that matter. I've worked as an industrial real estate broker for the past 15 years, and I can attest to how the asset class often works out of the spotlight. But this recent increase in demand for warehouses just so happens to coincide with the uncertainty in the office and retail markets. This also helps explain why industrial real estate has quickly become a sought-after asset class for investors. I'll illustrate this in just a moment, but first I could really use your help. I'm developing this series of videos to help you learn more about industrial real estate as a potential investment. Perhaps it's something you consider investing in directly or indirectly through the stock market, but my goal is to simply teach you as much as I can about the industry. If you get any value, please support this channel by subscribing to my channel and tapping that thumbs up button below. But back to my point about industrial real estate looking attractive. A number of stocks are actually outperforming other asset classes. We can look at the graphs of a few large real estate players to illustrate this. Boston Properties, a large REIT which owns office buildings in major markets all across the US, is down over 40% from its high earlier in 2020, while Simon Property Group, which is the largest shopping mall operator in the US, is trading at less than half of where it was last year. Even Equity Residential, which owns nearly 80,000 apartment units in the US, is down 25% from the same time last year. Contrast this to Prologis, which owns a significant industrial portfolio and is near all-time highs. These examples aren't unique to large property owners either, as I'm seeing this trend across all sizes of properties. I don't see this trend reversing anytime soon either. So if you want to learn more about the industry, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell so you get notified when I post my next video. In the next one, I'll go into important components of warehouses in much more detail. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. It's the increase in size of these ships which recently prompted the Panama Canal to spend over $5 billion to increase its capacity. Now these behemoth ships can go shave a considerable amount of time from having to go all the way around South America. This could have been the first obstacle our hero faced, but instead, Panamanian officials paved the way. Dug the way?